If you cheat, you're a punk. And nowadays, it seems that there are more punks out there than ever. It's a growing problem for the majority of competitive online games, and it's becoming a harder problem to solve. It's a problem that developers are in a great stress to solve, as the cheating pandemic means a devastating loss for reputation. Players urge developers to remedy the situation however they can, using whatever methods they deem necessary. Identify players through personal information? Sure. Run checks for file integrity constantly? Go ahead. Read memory for cheating software? Do it. Install a kernel-level anti-cheat? Now, hold on just 1 minute. Even with the promise of better anti-cheat capabilities, not everyone is sold to the extent that some anti-cheats go to combat cheating. No matter the success that their anti-cheat delivers, many consider their methods overstepping, a breach of privacy, and potentially malicious. Vanguard, Valorant's anti-cheat, came under fire for this exact reason in 2020, when it was revealed that it was a kernel-based driver. For those unfamiliar, operating systems like Windows control what kind of access the computer a program can have, what it can see, and what it can affect. This is to protect the computer from software that can maliciously or accidentally damage the computer in some way. A kernel-based driver practically has access to every component in the computer and can access, modify, or delete pretty much anything without proper precaution. But why do some people not like the idea of a deeply integrated anti-cheat? Why does Riot feel it necessary to go to the extent that they do? Follow me as we take a closer look at Vanguard, security versus privacy. First, let's take a look at what anti-cheat is as a concept. Anti-cheat falls under the umbrella of computer security. That is because anti-cheat aims to protect assets against attacks in a computer environment. In computer security, there are fundamentals which aim to accomplish goals in order to keep assets protected. Computer security aims to achieve confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and accountability. Confidentiality is achieved when we protect information from a game from those who have no reason to have it, such as a player's personal information or the inner workings of a game's code. Integrity is achieved when information sent and received by game clients or servers are sent as intended, without unwanted modifications and manipulations such as with hacks. Availability is achieved when a game is accessible at all times and prevents shutdowns from malicious actors such as with DDoS attacks or remote code execution that may cause crashes. Authenticity is achieved when everything in a game is verified to be trusted and information from the game to servers are validated. Finally, accountability is achieved when every action in a game can be traced to a source entity accurately. The goal here is that if there is someone who attacks the assets of the game in some way, then the anti-cheat can successfully pin it to the entity responsible. These pillars of computer security make up what Riot aimed to do with Vanguard, their anti-cheat solution. They wanted to protect their game from threats that aim to negatively impact it, especially cheating through hacking and scripts. And they did so by developing an anti-cheat that integrated itself deep into every user's computer. Cheats have been known to work at a deep level of computers, where they are allowed to run out of the scope of most standard anti-cheat, making them near undetectable. So understandably, Riot wanted to develop an anti-cheat that met the level of cheating software so that they could effectively combat it. This means that Vanguard is at a low level enough to potentially have near complete access to someone's computer, which is great for combating cheating software as it no longer has anywhere to hide. Because of this, Riot was able to protect Valorant from plenty of cheating software when the game launched, more effectively than any other anti-cheat. Most pillars were met successfully. The integrity of Valorant was met when hacks and suspicious players were banned, allowing for cleaner game lobbies, which also included availability as cheaters couldn't prevent legit games. Authenticity was met when it was known that Valorant players all had trusted machines, otherwise they would not be able to launch the game. Valorant was looking up to be one of the most secure games out in the market, and to many, this was all good news. However, not everyone was happy, especially those who, ironically, also had a vested interest in computer security. Part 1. Security. Computer security doesn't just apply to products of multi-million-dollar corporations. It also applies to every individual user across the internet. And when news came out that one of the most anticipated titles of the decade had an anti-cheat that was intrusive, to say the least, many users were vocally upset as the anti-cheat affected their pillars of security as well. Because Vanguard was integrated at the kernel level of the computer, the anti-cheat had access to most components and data. As one can expect, most regular players were okay with this because it was for the purpose of anti-cheat, but many of those who were familiar with computer security felt bothered by this. The primary reason wasn't because they believed that Riot was going to do something malicious with that power, rather it's just something you don't do in the computer field. Nearly all computer scientists, engineers, and enthusiasts follow the idea that software should have the least amount of privileges as possible when it comes to accessing, modifying, or deleting data on a computer. And giving third-party software that could intentionally or unintentionally harm the computer or user the highest amount of privileges there is, again, is just something you don't do. It wouldn't be the first time that a program accidentally bricked someone's device. For example, EVE Online had an update which deleted the Windows boot file, which prevented many users from accessing their computers. Keep in mind that EVE Online was just a game, not kernel-level software. So it was not surprising when it was revealed that Vanguard was going to be a kernel-level anti-cheat before Valorant came out that many were not on board because it violated their code of ethics. What is surprising, however, is while a minority of enthusiasts were not going to install Riot's new game, Valorant still got its huge player base, including many tech enthusiasts. They trusted Vanguard as much as they trusted Riot. After all, if Riot didn't want a PR disaster on their hands, then they would ensure that their anti-cheat did not pose a threat whatsoever, on top of delivering one of the most secure anti-cheats out in the market, better than VAC, Easy, and whatever non-existent mess they have in Warzone. It worked to such success that many players have been requesting that other anti-cheats be as intrusive as Vanguard to make the games they love cheater-free. Vanguard has proven that someone's personal security can be bartered with the promise of better anti-cheat. But what if the anti-cheat's effectiveness is what is the driving force driving enthusiasts away? Part 2. Accessibility. If Vanguard's intrusiveness is not what deters those with security in mind, then it's the multitude of restrictions that Valorant puts on the users in order to play the game, especially a PC game where user preference is a big selling point. As stated before, one of Vanguard's goals is to ensure that the players playing the game are running trusted machines, and because of this, Vanguard has set extensive restrictions on the environment that it allows Valorant to run in. This is to ensure that those who launch the game don't have malicious software or hardware that lets them do things that otherwise would make the game less secure. An example of this restriction is the prevention of the use of virtual machines. A virtual machine is a virtual instance of a computer that exists inside another computer. The uses of virtual machines vary, but one of the most common uses is to have software executed within the virtual machine without coming in contact with the original computer. This is done for the sake of security, a precaution against what could be dangerous software. A much safer alternative than running the program on the host machine, as many choose to play their games and other online activities on virtual machines to protect themselves from many threats such as privacy breaches and destructive code. It gives the user a way to have their host computer be anonymous on the internet as it connects to different servers. However, this kind of privacy approach goes against one of the goals of Vanguard: accountability. For Valorant to be secure, it has to know the machine that is running it, so that if a player were to cheat on it, then Vanguard can easily identify and hold the user accountable, usually through the means of a ban. Unsurprisingly, this means that Vanguard tries its best to detect the virtual machine and will refuse to launch Valorant. Other workarounds, alterations, or straight-up preferences are also restricted in the eyes of Vanguard as a means to ensure that trusted computers are the only things running Valorant. This is all done in the name of keeping the game secure, but it is a deterrent to many of those that are cautious by default or don't have any other means to play Valorant. Third-party operating systems fall under this categorization as most games run on Windows, and users of these systems, like Linux, require virtual machines to be able to play games without having Windows installed natively. And because many don't want to have to install Windows, they just then refuse to play Valorant. There are plenty more situations where this plays out, and unfortunately, it seems that things won't change anytime soon. For the guarantee that Valorant stays cheater-free, Riot is willing to sacrifice a portion of the PC community to ensure the environment. That isn't to say that malicious actors wouldn't use these to their advantage, but it can be said that this throws out many of those who would be potential Valorant fans out to the curb. There is one more reason why many are untrustful of Vanguard, and while it still deals with security and privacy, it has to do a lot more with the outside world, into the realm of politics. It would be nominal to be able to keep politics out of video games, as the two haven't had the best relationship for the longest time, but in this case it actually explains a viewpoint on those who still refuse to play Valorant outside of the ethical and technical limitations. Unbeknownst to many, Riot Games' parent company is the industry giant Tencent, but it isn't a secret that Tencent is heavily influenced by the Chinese government. It also isn't much of a secret that when it comes to individual rights, the Chinese government is liberal on the acts of violating said rights, to the point that many Western countries consider Chinese technology a debate of national security. This kind of information is crucial for everyone and anyone who has any interest in security and privacy. When you have a company that is owned by a conglomerate that directly has ties to a government that regularly attempts to own and control everything on their user's computer, it becomes a red flag when the company, in this case Riot Games, requires software that has near complete access to your computer in order to play a game in the name of anti-cheat. It is a huge concern because there is always a sense of paranoia when it comes to topics such as these. Vanguard could very well just be an anti-cheat that requires privileges to better ensure Valorant's success, but it's almost human nature to imagine the worst case scenario, in this situation being the Chinese government secretly ordering Riot Games to retrieve sensitive information from someone using Vanguard through a secret code or a backdoor. This is entirely possible and wouldn't be the first time a government Trojan horse-like scheme had been used to breach privacy, for example, the NSA violating privacy by spying on Americans. I would very much like to clearly say that there is no evidence that Riot Games has or will ever attempt any actions that would breach privacy using Vanguard, nor that they have done so under the orders of the Chinese government or entities like thereof. But for many, it isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and when it comes to personal security, it's better safe than sorry. Security will always be important, no matter the technology or game. With the cheater ever more present, it is interesting to wonder the extent that anti-cheat will reach to guarantee customer satisfaction. Vanguard has been seen as the farthest an anti-cheat will go yet, but then there's always the next big game, and if they want to ensure a much safer play space to fight a growing market of cheaters, they may have to take greater drastic measures.